In the summer of 1518, a woman stepped into the streets of Strasbourg and began to dance. There was no music, no celebration, no warning. Within weeks, hundreds would join her. Some of them would dance until they died. It did not begin with fire. It did not begin with blood. It began with movement. Her name was Frau Troffea. One morning in July, she walked into the narrow street outside her home and started to move. At first, it may have looked harmless, perhaps even amusing. A woman swaying in the summer heat, her shoes scraping against stone, her body twisting beneath the weight of the sun. But she did not stop. Hours passed. The light shifted. Neighbors gathered. By nightfall, she was still dancing. The next day, she continued. By the third day, her feet were bruised and bleeding, yet she could not, or would not, rest. Within a week, dozens had joined her. Within a month, hundreds were dancing in the streets of Strasbourg, and many of them would not survive. To understand how this could happen, you have to imagine the city as it was in 1518. Strasbourg lay along the Rhine, a crowded city of timber-framed houses leaning over narrow lanes. The air carried the smell of livestock, sweat, and river water. Life was fragile. Famine had struck repeatedly in the years before. Crops failed. Bread was scarce. Disease lingered constantly in the background. Smallpox, syphilis, plague. People believed deeply in saints, curses, and divine punishment. Suffering demanded explanation. When something went wrong, it was not random. It was a message. So when people began to dance without stopping, it did not feel like coincidence. It felt like something larger. At first, the authorities did not panic. They assumed it was temporary madness, a strange outburst that would fade. But it did not fade. More bodies joined. Men, women, children. There are no reliable accounts of music at the beginning. Witnesses described frantic, uncontrolled movements. Some dancers screamed. Others seemed distant, as if trapped inside their own bodies. They did not move with joy. They moved with exhaustion. They danced until their muscles failed, until their legs buckled and they collapsed onto the stones. And after a brief rest, many rose again. By August, the number had climbed into the hundreds. Records suggest that at the height of the outbreak, around 400 people were dancing. The city council met to confront the crisis. Physicians were consulted. They rejected the idea of demons and instead diagnosed the dancers with overheated blood. According to medical theory at the time, illness came from imbalances in the body's humors. Too much heat in the blood could drive a person into frenzy. The solution, they believed, was not restraint, but release. If the dancers were compelled to move, then they must dance until the sickness burned out. A wooden stage was built in the marketplace. Musicians were hired. Drums and pipes filled the square. The afflicted were encouraged to continue. Madness was turned into spectacle. The decision made everything worse. With rhythm imposed on them, the dancers did not recover. They endured. Under the summer sun, bodies twisted and stamped in relentless motion. Sweat soaked their clothes. Faces turned pale. One by one, they began to fall. Not in dramatic waves, but quietly. From heart attacks, from strokes, from sheer exhaustion. Contemporary reports claim that at the peak, up to 15 people were dying each day. The music did not immediately stop. The dancing did not immediately stop. Imagine the square filled with movement, and among it, bodies lying still. Eventually, the authorities reversed course. The musicians were dismissed. The stage dismantled. A new explanation emerged. This was not medical. It was spiritual. Many believed the dancers were cursed by Saint Vitus, a saint said to punish sinners with uncontrollable movement. The afflicted were transported to a shrine in the Vosges Mountains. There, priests performed rituals. The dancers were given red shoes marked with crosses. Holy water was sprinkled over them. Prayers were spoken. Slowly, the mania began to fade. By September, the outbreak had largely ended, as mysteriously as it had begun. No precise death toll survives. There are no confirmed mass graves, only fragments in city records and physician notes. But Strasbourg's tragedy was not entirely unique. Similar outbreaks had appeared along the Rhine in 1374. Entire groups convulsed and danced for days. The phenomenon became known as dancing mania. For centuries, historians have tried to explain it. One theory suggests ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on damp rye and can cause convulsions and hallucinations when consumed. Contaminated grain was common in medieval Europe, yet ergot symptoms are typically chaotic and painful, not sustained and rhythmic. It does not explain coordinated dancing that lasted for weeks. Another explanation is mass psychogenic illness, collective hysteria triggered by extreme stress. The people of Strasbourg were starving. They were fearful. They believed deeply in divine punishment. In such an environment, one woman dancing might have acted as a spark, the mind, overwhelmed by anxiety and desperation, expressing itself physically. Human beings are profoundly influenced by one another. If one person collapses in panic, others may follow. If one person begins to move, perhaps others feel compelled to join. Under enough strain, behavior can spread like contagion, and yet even that theory feels incomplete. Hysteria may explain trembling or fainting, but weeks of relentless motion, bodies overriding their own limits, that is harder to grasp. What makes the dancing plague so unsettling is not just the deaths, it is the loss of control. The idea that a person could want to stop and be unable, that entire communities could slip into the same pattern without understanding why. It forces us to confront a fragile truth. Human behavior is not always rational. It is shaped by belief, fear, environment, and sometimes pressure builds until something breaks. Strasbourg eventually returned to normal. Markets reopened. Church bells rang. Children played in the same streets where dancers had collapsed. Life resumed, as it always does. Today, Strasbourg is a peaceful city in modern France. Tourists walk its old streets, unaware of what happened there 5 centuries ago. There are no grand memorials marking where people danced themselves to death. The stones offer no explanation, but the story remains. In the summer heat of 1518, hundreds of people began to dance. Some believed they were cursed. Some believed they were sick. Some likely did not know what to believe. They only knew they could not stop. And then, as quietly as it began, the movement ended, leaving behind a question that still echoes through history. What truly happened in Strasbourg? Poisoned grain? Collective hysteria? Faith turned inward? Or something we still do not understand? The music is gone. The dancers are dust. But the mystery remains, like a faint rhythm beneath the surface of history, waiting to be felt again.